Josh Frydenberg, Finance Minister, Matthias Cormann. On MyEFO, let's take a look.
Statements and then happy to take some questions. Australians can be confident about their economic future, with the first current account surplus in 40 years, welfare dependency at its lowest level in 30 years, the biggest tax cuts in 20 years and the first balanced budget in 11 years. More than 1.4 million new jobs have been created since we've come to government. There is record investments in schools, hospitals, aged care and disability support. Household disposable income has risen in its fastest rate in more than a decade. And Australia has maintained its AAA credit rating. The Australian economy's remarkable resilience has occurred in the face of strong global and domestic economic headwinds. Our devastating drought has already taken 0.25 percentage point off GDP growth and reduced farm output by a significant amount over the last 2 years. Global trade tensions have weighed heavily on consumer and business sentiment, with forecasts for global economic growth and that of our major trading partners downgraded in today's MyEFO. Despite these challenges, MyEFO demonstrates that the Australian economy continues to grow, with the budget returning to surplus for the first time in 12 years. There are three key takeouts from today's MyEFO. First, the government is living within its means and paying down Labor's debt. Surpluses over the forward estimates total $23.5 billion and build to 1% of GDP by 26-27. With a forecast surplus of $5 billion in 2019-2020, it's a $53.5 billion turnaround on the deficit that we inherited upon coming to government. With gross debt having peaked in 2017-18 and net debt falling over the forward estimates, the nation's interest bill on its debt burden falls from $19 billion last year to $14.5 billion in 2022-23. Over the forward estimates in cumulative terms, this amounts to $13.5 billion that no longer needs to be spent on interest payments. This stronger fiscal position is achieved with a tax-to-GDP ratio of 23.1%, and this falls to 22.9% at the end of the forwards. Real growth in spending is 1.3% per annum on average over the forwards, reflecting more Australians in work. Spending as a proportion of GDP is at 24.5% this year, below the 30-year average. Our pathway to surplus has been steady and consistent, not relying on overly optimistic commodity forecasts.